Hey guys, welcome back to Sports Betting Truths Analyzing with R series, and this is going to be a very important video. We're going to talk about joins. Now, joins are a way that you can basically merge data from one data frame into another data frame without having to write a complex for and while loop function, look up tables and everything like that. It is one of the most powerful things you can do in R. And it might seem kind of complex, it might seem kind of confusing, but you got to remember, the more you practice at it, the more you'll get it, and the more you'll be able to apply it in your own code. Trust me, I use the hell out of joins. Now, before I begin, I just want to point out that this video is brought to you by our friends at BetMGM and BetRivers. Sign up today with the links below. BetRivers if you live in Pennsylvania or Illinois, and then BetMGM if you live in Virginia, Colorado, Tennessee, Indiana, or Iowa. Those are going to be your states. If you live in one of those 7 states, help us out with Sports Betting Truth. Sign up with those links below today. And also, if you want to help out Sports Betting Truth without, doing something like that, you can always hit the like button on this video. That helps very much as well. In this video, I'm really going to cover 2 types of joins, inner joins and left joins. Now, there's more joins out there, but those are the 2 I use probably 99% of the time. And since this is more about analyzing sports rather than just learning R in general, those are really the 2 you're going to use the most when analyzing sports. Now, like I said, this is one of the most powerful things you can do in R. Very helpful. It's awesome. It's powerful. You are able to really get the most out of your data and just manipulate your data frames and get the data in there you need very quickly. So let's get into the video. All right, so for the joins part of the series, I'm going to have 2 new files for you to download off my website with the description below and the links in the description below. And that is called a new file called Team Info. And this is a CSV file that just contains the information about teams, their ID, their team name, the coach, an abbreviation, and their conference. And then we also have Team Game Raw 2. Now this is the same file that we had in the last series, Team Game Raw, only I took out some columns. And so the idea of this video is to get the information from this Team Info CSV file into the Team Game Raw file that's missing. Because, yeah, we have the team IDs and the opponent IDs, but we don't know who any of those teams are. I mean, that's not very helpful. So, like, if we're looking at this file, okay, this game was played on January 9th between I don't know and I don't know. And, yeah, I mean, the first team scored 66 points and the second team scored 64 points, but who was it, So if you're doing something like this in Excel, you would have to do like a loop and like just reference, and it would just, not only would you have to write a lot of code to get information from table 1 to table 2, but it would take a long time. The code, you wouldn't be able to do it instantly. It would, the Excel would freeze and everything, and you would just have to wait for it to populate. But thankfully with R, we have the joins that allow the process to be a lot quicker. All right, so we have raw open back up. So what we're going to do is we're going to load those CSV files in, and we're going to call this Team Info file. Read CSV. Make sure you have the read R package, by the way. So library read R. If you don't, read CSV, team info.csv, and then we're going to call this game info file equals read CSV, team game raw 2.csv, team game raw 2.csv. So go ahead and load these files. If we view team info file, well, we have that. And then if we view game info file, we have that while it loads. So our goal is to load this information and merge it into this frame. And it's not too complicated. So if you do any other tutorial on joins, whether, not just in R, but any language at all, SQL, Python, it doesn't matter. They're always going to have you start with an inner join. That's always usually the first join they teach you. And I'm going to get there. But in my experience doing, models in R with baseball and basketball and everything else, I find myself using left join more. Left join. And I'll explain the difference between left join and inner join first. But those are going to be the 2 types of joins we're going to cover in this video, because not only are those the 2 I use the most, but they're really the only 2 I use. I mean, there's other joins out there like right joins, anti-join, semi-join, full join, and all that, but I never use them. So the whole point of this series isn't so much to teach you how to use R, but it's to teach you how to use R for sports analysis. And if I don't really find myself using right join or full join or anything like that, what's the point, right? So like I said, the reason I'm doing left join first is because I probably use that most of the time. I would say probably 2/3 of the time it's going to be a left join. And then the other 1/3 is inner join. So I'm going to teach you how to do a left join right now. So let's go ahead and open our files back up again and view them. All right, so our goal right now is to get the team names into this file. We're going to match the team ID and game info file to the team ID right here. So what we're going to do is, because the game info file is bigger and we don't want to multi-join that one and this one's smaller, we're going to merge the team info into the game info. So the syntax to do a join, we're going to do left join, r left join, which is going to equal game info file pipe. If you don't know what a pipe is, go back and watch the last DPLYR video, because you're going to need to know that for this video. And then we're going to do left join team info file. So the first one you put is the primary, and then the second one you put in the parentheses of left join is the information you want to add into the primary frame. So to join, what we're going to do is join by the common column. Now our common column in both frames is obviously the team ID, because it exists in both frames. So we're going to try to match the team IDs across both columns to populate our frame. And so the thing is, in game info file, the team ID is, the column is called team ID, but in this one it's TMID. It's spelled differently. So the first one you put is going to be team ID, because the first column you put to match on is the column in this one right here in that frame, and then the second one equals TMID, which is the column for this frame right here. So it goes in order the way you have them spelled out. So if we go ahead and run that, and then do view r left join, well, we have the same frame. You're probably wondering, okay, where's the information? Well, it's at the end. So now at least we know that team ID right there corresponds to Santa Clara, and it also has their coach, their abbreviation, and their conference. Pretty cool, right? So then you could rearrange the frame as you wanted later to make it easier to read. So, but we still have an issue. We still don't know who the opponent is. So we need to also join on opponent. So you're not limited to only one by right here. Now I do want to point out before I move forward, if both columns, if both of our data frames, say both of them were team ID like that, say the team info file is spelled out TEAM_ID, then you wouldn't have to do the equal. You could just do by equals team ID like that. But since they're different, you do the equals. So to get the opponent ID in there as well, we would do another pipe. Left join team info file by equals C op ID equals team ID. So now if we run it and then view our left join and we scroll over to the right, well, now we have the team name, which is suffixed by .x, and then the opponent name, which is suffixed by .y, and all of their information. So that's how you can add in the opponent as well. And then we can just, if you wanted to, you could rearrange the columns as you choose. So that's how you do a left join. So a left join keeps everything in the first data frame you specify and then joins in the second data frame you specify. It keeps everything. Keep that in mind. So let's do this. Let's kind of create a schedule out of this frame. So we're going to keep 1, 2, 3, 26. So let's write this down. Let's go. C 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 26. And then we're going to keep 43 and 47. So let's copy and paste that. Bring it up here. And then we're going to say r left short equals r left join, and then our thing. So let's go ahead and do that, and go ahead and view r left short. All right, so now we kind of have like a schedule frame, right? All right, and just to make things easy to read, we're going to move the points and points D column after. So columns 5 and 6. So let's do this: 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 7 and 8, and then 5, 6. And just rearrange the columns in r left short. So now it's a little bit easier to read with the score and everything. So let's also go ahead and change this column name and that column name. So col names r left short 5 to 6 equals team, and then up. And now we rename the column names. I forgot the C, my bad. All right, so now what we can do is, before I move on to inner join, I kind of want to highlight the concept of doing a left join with multiple bys. So we're going to call this r left mult by, and then we're going to do r left short left join, and we're going to do team info file again, and then by equals C. we're still going to do team ID equals team ID, but also we're going to do team equals team name. And by doing it like this, that's how you can join on multiple keys, and that way you're not replicating them. So now if we do r left mult by, and then do view r left mult by, well, now we have at least the info for the first team. So you're probably wondering, can you do it like this as well? Can you go like team ID equals op ID, and then op equals team name? Will that work? Well, let's try it out. Left short. There is an op ID in there. I don't know why it gave me that error message. Let's try it again. Oops, this is why it's giving me the error messages. Op ID equals TM ID, and then op name equals team name. So what if we did that? Well, what's it going to look like? Well, nothing happened, because that's why you have to do the multiple pipes, because you can't recycle the same key in your statement. So that's why you have to pipe it in at the bottom. And then you go left join team info file by equals C team ID equals op ID equals team ID, and then op equals team name. And now when you do it like that, now it's going to be better. But we still have the .x and .y, which you can fix with simple call names. So now let me show you the difference between a left join and an inner join. Remember when I said a left join keeps everything in the first frame you specify. So let's do this real quick. Let's take r left mult by and group it down. Let's just select team ID, op ID, and then team. Team ID and team. Let's just select those two, group by team ID, team, and then summarize games equals n. All right. So now let's look at what r left mult by equals. So now it's pretty much just a list of every team that's played this year and how many games they've played, right? It's really not that complex. And now I'm about to show you what the difference is between an inner join and a left join. So now we're going to do a left join again. Let's call it another left equals. Let's start with team info file this time. Team info file left join r left mult by equals C, and let's do by team ID and team. Remember, since we did team info file first, we're going to do TM ID equals team ID. And then we don't have to do this, but just for the sake of it, we can do team name equals team. All right, so let's do that and see what it says. View another left. Okay, this looks fine, okay, it looks good. But, oh wait, we have Bethune Cookman. Oh wait, we have Brown. Oh wait, Columbia, Cornell. You know what all these teams are? These are the teams that opted out of the season. And do we want them in a 2021 data frame? Well, I wouldn't. There's no need, right? So the thing is, our team info file contained those teams, right? Because they still exist. They're still in Division I, but that file is made before the season started. So what if you just wanted to exclude those teams and only include teams that actually played this year? Well, that's where the inner join comes into play. An inner join is a merge like left join, but it only keeps the data that's in both frames, okay? It only keeps the data in both frames. So since I assign team ID of -1 to teams that aren't playing this year, then the -1 ID is not going to be in this frame right here. So that's where inner join comes to play. So let's call this our inner join and do the same thing, team info file, but inner join instead of left join, r left mult by equals C, and then same ID, team name equals team. So the same syntax, only with inner join instead of left join. Well, what's going to happen? View our inner join. Well, now we don't have those teams like Brown and Columbia and Cornell and everything in here because the team ID didn't match. So in order for an inner join to return a result, the key column, which in this case is team ID and team name, they both have to match. While the team name might have matched, right? The team ID didn't. And also remember, r left mult by only contains teams that played this year. And so since teams like Brown and Columbia and Cornell and the other Ivy Leagues are not going to be in r left mult by, well, the team info file that we're joining with isn't going to be able to find them, so they're not going to be included. So when we did the left join, it included those teams because it didn't matter whether or not they existed in R left multiply. But when we did the inner join, it did matter because since it could not find those teams in the R left multiply, it excluded them. And that's why our inner join does not contain them and another left does. So that's the main difference. I use left join most of the time because I don't like excluding teams, because most of the time what you're matching on, you still want to keep your data. But if it's imperative that it only includes data that's in both frames, then you want to use inner join. And so that's really the power of joining frames right there. I wish I could give you more examples than that. I really wish I do, but it's so situational. But I use left join and inner join all the time in my code, but I really want to keep it simple for this lesson. So, all right, so here's an example we can use, another joining example. So let's do this. Let's take most points and do this. Game info file, select team ID points, group by team ID, and then summarize max points equals max points. So what's this going to do is it's going to, if you remember our last lesson, it's going to create a data frame of the most number of points each team has scored this year. And so let's view it. But all we have is an ID and the max points, okay? So this isn't really helpful. We don't know who they played, when it happened, what these teams are. So what we want to do is we want to join this information in. So the first thing we're going to do is join the date in. So let's pipe and then do left join. We're pretty much going to join the file by itself. Game info file by equals C, team ID. We don't have to do the equal because, remember, if it's the same, then we don't have to. And then max points equals points. So what do you think is going to happen if we do this? All right, well, now we got all that info. And so, okay, that might be, we don't compare about everything else. So we just want date, right? So we're going to just select a team ID, max points, op ID, and date. Team ID, max points, date, and op ID. Okay, so now if we rerun that, well, now we at least have the date and the opponent ID in there, which is good. And now what we can do is pipe again and do another left join team info file by equals C, team ID equals team ID. And so now we can run this, and now we have the information for the team, and then we can run it one more time, left join team info file, do the same thing, equals C, op ID equals team ID. And that's how you can kind of join a frame to itself to get the information you want. So now we know the teams, the max points, the date, and their opponent on the day they scored the max number of points. But look, Sienna's in here twice because they have scored 78 points more than once. And so they got put in there twice. That can be an issue with joining. It's called a one-too-many join. Ideally, it's a one-to-one join, but when you have a one-too-many join, that's what happens when the same ID you're matching on occurs twice. And that can be an issue. USC, same thing. So like I said, in order to get around that, you have to be careful. You want to make sure what you're matching on is unique. If it's not, you're going to have something like that occur. And sometimes you can't get around it. You're going to get the one-too-many join anyway. So that's just something to look out for when you're doing joins. Yeah, so you want to get really good at joins because you're going to be using it a ton. It's just coming up with good examples, I'm still trying to come up with some. So one thing I use a join for personally is like join scores, right? So if I run this live log right here, and then I do view live log, well, this is a collection of odds and live odds that I put in manually this season, okay? And it goes back to February 5th only because that's a manual cutoff I put in, but I have odds going back before that. So I put in what the live line is and what the current margin was and everything. So one reason I'd want to use a join with this is when the game's over, I can join the final scores to it, which is what I do right here. I join each team's score in there to get ultimately a data frame called live log join, and from there I can translate it into spreads and totals and everything. And so I'm able to join the final scores into these odds that I put in as the games are happening to see, how my models did against the final score based on what my models are saying at the time. That's an example of how I would use a join personally. But overall, the whole point of joins is to join data and merge them together from one frame to another without having to do a complex for and while lookup table function that would just take a long time and be very strenuous. This allows you to join data very quickly. You'd be surprised at how fast it is. Like massive data sets can be joined together like that. And so joining is something that's very powerful that you can use in R, in Python and SQL as well, but this is an R series, and so you want to get really good at that. So I just showed you those couple examples, but still, you get the idea. Like, just practice that over and over, get the hang of the syntax and everything on how to join stuff together, play around with it, mess around with it, and you're going to come to situations where you're going to be like, joining, that sounds like a very good idea in this situation. Like another thing I use join for, daily fantasy. I join the daily fantasy. You can download the daily fantasy information, for the contest, and then you join your model stats into the daily fantasy contest. That's just another way to use it. Anyway, that wraps it up for this video, so we'll move on to the next one next week. Again, very powerful stuff. I wish I could give more examples than what I did, but like I said, it's very situational, but trust me, you're going to come to a point where you're going to like, wow, I wish I could get that data into this data, right? And then you're going to be like, aha, join. And it'll become like second nature eventually. I use joins all the time, and it might seem confusing at first, but it is the way. It is the way to really populate your data frames quickly and get the data you need. So just get good at that. Even if you just repeat those examples over and over, just play around with the data and the description, get good at joins. Anyway, next week we got more videos on R, so stay tuned. Until next time, this is Sports Betting Truth, signing off.